Story 1. Started talking about how vaccines contain microscopic tracking devices and the Earth is shaped like a donut. I figured it was easier to disappear than explain why I did not want to join his weekly conspiracy theory book club. Story 2. I told them my mother had just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and they replied, "Well, you don't sound very sad about that." Then they proceeded to tell me about their new romance and how happy they were. They still email every 5 years or so, demanding I tell them why they were ignored. Story 3. I had an ex reach out to me after about 20 years. It was kind of nice catching up with someone who used to mean a lot to me. Then she started talking about how she never really got over me and was wondering what would happen if we met up. One of the first things I told her when she contacted me was that I was married. I felt she was trying to take things in a direction that would not have ended well. I deleted and blocked her number right away. Story 4. We went on a first date and he said he liked to run over animals if he got the chance. I left the date early and blocked him. I saw him a few months later at a pub. As soon as he saw me, he chugged his drink and left. Story 5. They gave me the uncomfortable feeling so suddenly, I could not even explain it to myself, let alone to them. Disappearing felt easier than forcing a fake atmosphere. Story 6. Not so much ghosting, but the conversation fizzled out. When someone replies with one-word answers and does not make an effort in the conversation, I stop responding. Story 7. He was a gaslighter and manipulator, and I was severely trauma-bonded to him. Going entirely dark and cutting all contact without explanation was the only way to get out. If I had listened to him explain one more time how I was the love of his life and how I was ruining our relationship by wanting to leave, I would have killed myself. The cognitive dissonance was too strong because he was a serial cheater who also abused me for years. Story 8. My family is emotionally abusive. I tried to set boundaries, but they ignored them. Once I realized that everyone only talked to me when they needed something, rather than genuinely caring about me, I gave up trying to make it work. I understood that the only way I would be okay was if they were no longer in my life. I blocked everyone and have not missed them at all. Some families are overrated. Story 9. They were arrested and later convicted for molesting a child. There is nothing more to discuss. Our friendship ended at that moment. Story 10. I realized I was doing all the initiating and arranging. We have lived in different states for a long time, but she has family near me. I saw on Facebook that she was often in town visiting and never heard anything about getting together. I do not chase people. I stopped checking in and here we are. I am not mad, just done. Story 11. Because they were just a mean person, and I could not take it anymore. I did not want to explain my feelings to them because there was absolutely no chance we could ever get back on the right track. Story 12. They did nothing but complain about their situation while refusing to improve things and made excuses for everything. Leaving the house or even making a simple phone call was impossible. Moreover, after I tried to help and motivate them, they started demeaning and belittling my efforts to progress out of the difficult situation I was in. Misery loves company, it seems, and I was not going to be miserable anymore. Goodbye. Story 13. Ghosting literally means no warning. I did it often when casually dating because you really do not owe anything to a stranger you have seen twice in your life. Protect your peace. Story 14. I am not telling anyone I am ignoring them. I am justified in ignoring them, just as I am free not to answer questions. Story 15. My ex cheated on me but still wanted to be with me. She did it again, so I stopped all communication. She continued to call repeatedly and kept coming by. She was not right. Story 16. 2 toxic friendships. The first one crossed agreed boundaries badly. The second was so toxic that once all obligations and reasons to stay friends were gone, I ghosted them because I was tired of walking on eggshells and putting up with them. Story 17. Bad first date. At the end of it, they waited with me at the train station for my train home. I said I was going to the bathroom, and they left. I did not even bother messaging them. And then the next day they asked, "So, how are we feeling?" I never replied and blocked them on everything. Story 18. The guy kept mouthing off to other men, and whenever someone confronted him, he would run away, leaving me with an angry person I did not have any problems with. Story 19. I had a friend. We had a lot in common. The same cynical attitude about many things and the same sense of humor. Unfortunately, he is also a major supporter of Donald Trump and an evangelical, which I am definitely not, but for years we made it work. I owed him and his wife a meal, so I invited them to a local restaurant, made a reservation for 6 o'clock, and sent them both a copy of the reservation with the time and place clearly indicated. I got there a few minutes before 6 o'clock and texted them that I was at a nice table outside. The wife immediately responded, "Oh, can we sit inside? It was a very nice day. Sure, no problem. If I'm invited to dinner and the host wants to sit outside, I wouldn't say anything. It's their party." Next, I got a text from her asking why I was so early since I told them the reservation was for 6:30. This is petty, but I never would have said that, even if I believed it, which was not true. They had a written copy of the reservation. I would never blame someone else for a mistake like that. I would at most say, "Oh, I thought the reservation was for 6:30, without assigning blame. At that point, I had enough. I texted them both to cancel and left. I haven't talked to them since. This sounds extremely petty, I know, but I had also been regularly receiving political texts supporting Donald Trump from them, and I think that was the real issue. I could tolerate their religion and their anti-vaccine views, but supporting Donald Trump was too much. I believe then and believe now that if you support Donald Trump, there is something seriously wrong. You are in a very dark place, and I don't want to be part of it." Story 20. It was getting exhausting to keep it up, so I just stopped responding or making an effort. That was one. Another person told me I do not belong in the United States of America because I have a permanent resident card and not citizenship. I am German, and for the longest time, we could not really have dual citizenship. That changed last year. So that friendship was ended a couple of weeks ago. Story 21. I said no because I did not like him. We had not even met. He just slid into my direct messages. We talked a little but had nothing in common. He asked to meet up. I said no thanks, and he would not accept it. He kept messaging to get me to change my mind and became quite aggressive, so I stopped responding. Story 22. They were turning into an idea man and kept waking me in the middle of the night because they had a brilliant idea for an application or a game. They repeatedly could not grasp that an idea is worthless if it relies on everyone just does X, or that simply stealing service is not a viable long-term business model. Story 23. My friend would not stop hinting that he wanted to get close to me even though we are both married. He kept doing it even after I told him multiple times that it was not appropriate. He still tries to message me about twice a year. Story 24. I had a close friend in university. We had the same major, played in a band together, and spent time together. We had a lot in common, and he is a good person. He is extraordinarily confident, subtly egotistical, and though not narcissistic per se, very self-centered and extroverted. I have enough of my own flaws, but I'm not the type to make myself the center of attention. If anything, I am underconfident and have a healthy view of the fact that I'm not dominant in social settings. Over the years, this friend alienated many people with his aggressive behavior and could be unknowingly offensive and grating. I tried many approaches: direct confrontation, distancing, timeouts, and more. None worked. When I brought these issues up, it was like he was the victim. I built up resentment and anger. I didn't always wish him well. I sometimes found satisfaction in his misfortunes. Knowing he wasn't going to change and that I was becoming a person I did not want to be, one day, after more than 10 years of very close friendship, I ended the relationship. He was devastated, emailed my wife, and tried to contact me. I froze him out. Finally, a few months later, I replied with a brief message and never spoke to him again. I truly wish him well. I respect him and acknowledge that he is a good person. But I cannot have that obnoxiously self-assured, no vulnerability, peak confidence male attitude in my life. I simply did not like him as a person. Story 25. Probably the pettiest thing, but I was going through a rough time and I had texted my friend saying, "Hey, literally everyone is ignoring me and I am spiraling a little." She ignored me for 3 days while I had a mental breakdown, so I just never texted her again. It has been over a year, and I still cannot seem to bring myself to text her. We live in the same city and everything. Story 26. A couple of friends from past life. Not intentionally. I was simply unable to keep social connections because of my own self-image issues and anxiety from even the tiniest confrontation. I have been working on it with my therapist and have gotten a lot better at speaking my mind these days. But possibly the worst victim was my ex. I didn't let him know I was done. I just vanished. I still feel guilty about it at times for not being direct about what wasn't working for me. By the time we bumped into each other at common friends' weddings, I was dating my current husband, who strictly wanted no contact with exes, so I ended up avoiding him entirely. Story 27. She had a sexual relationship with her cousin, was proud of it, and was deeply offended by my lack of support for the endeavor. I did not have it in me to explain my reasons because some things should not have to be said. Story 28. I didn't think I could have a conversation without raging, so I tried to do us both a favor and not have it at all. Eventually, I was pushed to have it, managed to only give the necessary response and have closure. Still, I feel like flying into a rage whenever I think about that conversation as well as everything else. Story 29. I was in an abusive relationship that was very controlling. Took me a while to unlearn patterns after I left. I ghosted many people who did not deserve it because I was paranoid that anyone I dated after the abuse would think I was cheating. I experienced massive anxiety if I even saw a text from an old friend. I would just delete it. I have a lot of regrets about that. Story 30. I don't remember all of them, but I don't care about being ghosted or ghosting, not in the talking or dating stages. Since I was 25, I've sent the "it's not you, it's me" message. But is that really better than ghosting? I'm not giving them real reasons like, "your teeth gave me the ick," or "you are kind of stupid." They don't deserve that. It's just my opinion. Some other person will fall madly in love with them. I would never ghost in a relationship or after months of dating. But being ghosted during the first to fourth date period doesn't worry me. You shouldn't take it so hard. The silence is all you need to know. They won't give you a real constructive reason anyway. Story 31. No. People need to learn how to be adults and communicate. Ghosting because you have absolutely zero conflict resolution skills is nothing but immaturity. Story 32. When my friend ended the call with me but forgot to hang up and started talking to her live-in roommate, I put myself on mute while listening to her talk negatively about me. I was done at that point and decided to block her. Story 33. I have ghosted maybe 5, possibly 6 people in my life. My reasons are not as severe as some of the posts here, but there was always something that triggered it. The truth is that not all friendships, acquaintances, and relationships are meant to be forever. Some relationships have a beginning, middle, and end. For example, I had a good friend for 20 years. It started to become a bit one-sided. I was putting in more effort than she was. I invited her to my granddaughter's baptism, and she declined because she wanted to attend a butterfly release. No, we are done. Story 34. Because I no longer cared about the relationship, and I had no desire to discuss it with someone I no longer cared about, I just left. Story 35. I do not need to explain myself to them. They can reflect on recent events and conversations and deduce for themselves the reason why they were ignored. Or they can ask. They would have to care first. Story 36. I never completely ghosted anyone, but I slowly backed out of several friendships based on the fact that they fully supported former President Donald Trump. No regrets. I have zero commonality or respect for Trump supporters. Story 37. There is no warning. Once you start begging for money and I barely know you, you will be blocked. If I have told you about things to improve or what I do not like and you do not change, you will be ignored. Story 38. It depends on their actions. I am very clear in my mind about what people do that shows they like you versus not. Story 39. I slept with a longtime friend of about 10 years and stayed with him for a weekend. Right before I was going to fly out, he pulled me in for one last intimate moment, and immediately afterward, rolled off me and said we should remain friends. I was looking for something else. I could tell that he felt that way most of the weekend but wanted one last intimate moment before I left, and then he dropped the bomb. After a few months of awkward conversations trying to keep the friendship alive, I met someone new and started dating them. I stopped communicating with the old friend after that. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 years. I didn't feel obligated to communicate with my old friend, just as he didn't feel obligated to communicate with me before being intimate one last time. Story 40. She lied constantly. The final straw was when she was promoted over me at a job I got for her. She lied to my face about the promotion. I had to find out from someone else. I quit the job without notice and never spoke to her again. She ran into me in public once and tried to question me about it. I just walked away. Story 41. I had someone I thought was a good online friend. We met online through a shared love of one particular band, and we ended up chatting almost every day, talking about various aspects of our lives. Nothing romantic, just good friends, and in some ways it was a form of therapy for both of us. This continued for over 5 years, but then I realized it had become a one-way relationship. She would respond when I contacted her, but never initiated conversation. So I stopped initiating contact. I have not heard from her in the 10 years since. Story 42. The first was a good friend whom I was supporting through depression. It took a significant toll on my mental health, and they didn't fully respect my boundaries. I connected them to other resources, and eventually the friendship drifted apart. They reached out again a year or two later saying, "I want to be as close as we used to be," and I had to turn them down. I couldn't go through that again. I never told them why because I didn't want to discourage them from seeking support from others. I still think of them frequently with a lot of love, but don't believe it's a friendship they would be open to rekindling now. The second was a man I met while living abroad who was also from my home country. We started off as friends but bonded over both being in struggling long-distance relationships. After I broke up with my ex, he became increasingly possessive of me around other men and kept trying to initiate intimacy despite still being with his girlfriend. It got to the point where I had to be rude to him constantly to stop him from flirting. I cut off contact when I moved home and never gave him my home number, but he found it anyway and kept texting me. He drove to visit my hometown on several occasions, even though he lived more than 6 hours away, displaying behavior verging on stalking. I am very glad I made the decision I did. Story 43. I'm from New Zealand. I made a friend from the United States and ghosted them. I used to ghost them and other people many times on Instagram before. I have deleted it and currently have no social media other than this. I'm not a big social media person, so I would randomly take weekly or monthly breaks from it. They understood. I'm not a big social person in general because of my anxiety, but online was easier to engage with some people because I was not face-to-face with them. This one person was different. I connected and felt comfortable with them. We shared enough of our personal lives, our drawings, likes, values, opinions, and even wrote letters and sent drawings and other items to each other. I felt comfortable enough to call them a friend. I've never had many friends in my life. I didn't ghost because I don't care or don't like them, but I think they already have a life that is just starting now, so it will be busy. They have friends in their own country, and my life is usually the same whenever we talk. I don't know if I subconsciously think they deserve better. Not that I want to end the friendship. I would love to reconnect with them again, maybe in person one day, and I'll always think well of them. For now, I just don't think I'm needed in their life. I didn't really know how to tell them that and didn't think I should. Story 44. I was recently graduated from high school and had just discovered I was autistic when I confessed I had a crush on a guy. Things were going well and we planned a date, but then he said he loved me despite us barely ever talking outside of class. It scared me and I didn't know how to handle it. I told him the love confession made me not want to date him, said we could still be friends, and then stopped texting him. I regret ghosting him and think about it often. I hope he is doing okay. I don't regret not dating him because telling someone you love them when you don't even know their birthday is unusual. We had never even hung out outside of school. Story 45. My friend told me about his neighbor's finances because his wife had access to private financial information and would look it up for people they knew. Story 46. Because they stopped listening and further conversation became pointless. Seriously, you are allowed to have your opinion. Just do not expect me to support it without facts. Story 47. I had a difficult and bossy cousin who made the passing of both my parents much more dramatic than it needed to be. Once I tried to set boundaries for my own well-being, she completely ignored them, stating, "We are family and family does not have boundaries. Quit being so sensitive, and I pray for your healing," among other things. She quickly learned the consequences of her behavior. Story 48. I don't know if it counts as ghosting, but basically, this guy was a little flaky and non-committal to all plans, which honestly didn't bother me that much. He had 2 jobs. No, actually, it was that we texted daily on Snapchat. He always texted me first, and I thought that was really cool, you know? But then, one day, I noticed the snap streak said 64 days. I realized that I could count the number of meaningful conversations I had had with this guy in that time on one hand, with more fingers left over than I am comfortable admitting. Every single other conversation was like, hey, what's up? Work. Oh, cool. Which job today? Asterisk nothing at all till next text and repeat. Asterisk. I just stopped replying and never said why. He spent an actual week, I assume, paying Snapchat to maintain our streak before he stopped messaging me and disappeared. I had already stopped inviting him to plans about a month before that because I noticed he flaked on plans a lot. I told him point blank he could initiate plans if he wanted, but I wouldn't anymore, after I said that he did once. To be honest, after I realized the Snapchat thing, I also realized that he literally asked me to hang out so I would drive him to another town for weed, and that was it. At the time, I was too busy to notice because I was already going, and he just asked to tag along. Why did it last that long? At the time, I got literally 3 hours of free time a day and was otherwise only available on weekends. I honestly just didn't pay that close attention to the situation. To be fair, if he had ever asked why I stopped replying, I would have told him it was because I could find better conversation with an actual wall. But all he did was send pictures of his forehead. Story 49. I was a penniless cocaine addict at 18 with a 17-year-old girlfriend. Her parents hated me, I hated me, and my friends hated me. One day, I snapped, packed a bag, and left. I got clean and went to college. 2 years later, she was visiting friends at the same college and saw me in the dining hall. She loudly broke up with me in front of several hundred people. She then went on to be one of the most disliked competitors on several versions of Ink Master. Story 50. She was crazy. I don't mean like a normal, undiagnosed mental illness and she needs help kind of crazy. I mean light a fire in the bathroom of the bar so she can steal from the register to treat me to the nice Coca-Cola while we're on our first date kind of crazy. I don't do Coca-Cola, and I worked with police officers at the time. I had her drop me at my work just so she could never know where I lived. I had to ride home in the back of a police car still, though. Story 51. Started speaking negatively about others, destroying the hobby work of minors on the internet to feel superior. They accused me of insane things, lied about me, and tried to get me into trouble. I blocked them without another word. They then tried to explain themselves to a friend of mine, who firmly told them to leave. They proceeded to speak negatively about me behind my back for over half a year. They also stalked me online, found out my workplace, nothing came of that, and continued to be a disgrace to humanity, I suppose. Story 52. Had a friend from south of the border without legal papers for 3 years. A fishing buddy. I told him I needed some home repairs, and he said that was what he did. He made up a quote, a standard contractor's estimate, and sent it to me and signed because he is not a licensed contractor. Then he immediately asked me for half the payment for materials. Everything pointed to a long game scam. I sent him a message saying I was ending our business and personal relationships, then blocked and deleted him on all platforms. Story 53. Talking about her ex. She said, I do not wish bad karma on him. I wish bad karma on his 4-year-old daughter. Story 54. I left my last partner 7 years ago and cut all contact. When people ask why, I simply explain that it does not make sense to maintain any level of communication with a pathological liar. He knows what he did. Story 55. I went out on a date with a guy in my city. We went for drinks and then saw a play. I am involved in my local theater community, so it was a small production held in a bar basement. though a large one. Everything was going well. We were both a little drunk. He was laughing at the play, and so was I. It was a good evening. Then he started heckling, like the type you might see but would not do in stand-up comedy. He began making quippy one-liners during the play, as if it were Mystery Science Theater 3000. I had never seen this before. A comedian can address this, but actors have to stick to their lines. It was a tiny theater with almost everyone volunteering, so no one stopped him. After the play, he acted like everything was normal and talked about how good he was. I never spoke to him again. Story 56. My best friend, a married woman in an abusive marriage, and I, older and married, were extremely close. She started to pull away from me after a big argument that almost involved protection orders. She breadcrumbed me for months to see if I was still available. Then she pulled so far back that I had to block and delete her. I miss her every day, but my mental health could not continue. Story 57. I told them I just got out of the psychiatric ward after a mental health break due to stress from my job, which I ended up quitting so money was tight. I told them I would not be able to make it to Friendsgiving, and they said, "That is unfortunate. You could make a donation, and we will have a game in your honor." Story 58. My high school friend group. I lost everyone's contact number after high school due to changing phone numbers, but then I moved on. During university years, somehow one of them got my new number and called to check up and asked me to go to his house because everyone was there. I went, said hi to everyone, and caught up. The issue is that everyone is a heavy smoker now. The place smells bad, and they are also much more disrespectful. They try to be edgy and funny, but they overstep all the time, dishing out insults as edgy jokes constantly. At first, I thought maybe this was just once or twice, but no, it kept happening, even in group chats. One time, I had enough. I saw them making fun of one of the guys in the group, and I thought to myself, why do I even bother with these guys? I immediately left the group chat. The next day, they noticed and added me again, and I left immediately. Story 59. I was leaving a 14-year abusive relationship. I was the one being abused. My friends helped me and my dog disappear. My ex had no idea where I was until I went through the divorce and my address was posted. Then she knew where I moved to because they have to post that information, which is dangerous if you are trying to hide from a harmful ex. I have not spoken to her since I left, even though she keeps trying to get back in touch. Story 60. This would have been 13 to 14 years ago, and I still think about it and how terrible I feel that I ghosted her. It has been so long that I honestly cannot remember the exact reason why I ghosted her. All I really remember is that she was a great person who did not deserve to be left without an explanation. To be honest, I have thought about reaching out and apologizing for it. Story 61. They kept canceling plans on me at the last minute. Last time they did, it cost me quite a bit of time and money because paid time off was used. Wherever you are, I hope you have learned to respect people's time. Story 62. I ghosted a former work friend. We both worked for a very toxic company and bonded over that initially. I left the company about a year before she did. This woman has many issues. She is the main character and needs an extreme amount of affirmation. To me, much of our friendship was work-related, and she was not someone I would have chosen as a friend. She continued to get in touch. She was always the one to initiate contact, but there was always drama in her life, and I had to try to talk some sense into her. Earlier this year, I had serious family and health issues and did not have the capacity to deal with her behavior. She often called me during work hours, which annoyed me, even though I told her to call me after work. I texted her to say that I had a lot going on with medical issues and needed space for myself and my family. I said I would get in touch when the time was right. She kept calling and texting me about her life and issues, so I blocked her without warning. Do I feel bad about that? Occasionally, but I do not have the bandwidth to let her be an emotional vampire. Story 63. The girl I was talking to used to complain about her friend to me, and I would reciprocate and support the things that bothered her. Her friend was mean and smoked a lot of marijuana. Then one day, she was mad at me and told her friend that I alone had said all those things, basically sending her friend after me, which was insane. We immediately went completely out of contact. She reached out about a year later to rekindle the friendship. I talked with her briefly and then ended the relationship by ignoring her. I will not be treated like that. Story 64. I had a long-distance relationship with Jay, me in South America, she in Europe, that lasted 2.5 years. Then I started seeing someone in my city and told Jay that I was going to enter a serious relationship with the girl I just met and tried to end things civilly. Jay didn't like it much but couldn't do anything about it, so it was okay. A year later, my relationship ended and Jay and I started talking again. No big deal. The thing is, Jay is the same age as me, now 43. And she has been doing absolutely nothing with her life even before COVID-19. She doesn't work, doesn't have hobbies, and lives with her mom, who cooks, cleans, and does everything for her. I never liked that, but in the end, it's not my business. When we started talking again, I felt Jay was still mad at me because I chose to have a real relationship with someone I could be with in the real world instead of having 6-hour-plus long video calls with her forever. At that time, I lost a job because I messed up, and I was very aware of that. I have been living in this country for 13 years and am independent. If I don't have money or food, it's completely my fault. No one else is responsible for me. Jay started coming down hard on me about losing my job. Everything went south when, during a long voice call, she was already upset because she wanted a video call. She started criticizing me for not getting my life together and supposedly not knowing what to do with it. This all coming from a 43-year-old woman who doesn't even wash her own clothes and somehow manages to vacation around Europe twice a year. I still feel a little petty about this situation with Jay, but I'm my own man. Everything I have and don't have is because of me. I'm alone. No one does anything for me, and I'm proud of that. This woman, who only wanted endless video calls with me because she does nothing every single day, can't just come at me calling me a mess because I made a mistake and was without a job at that moment. At the beginning, we just met online. I wanted to talk about my feelings, and she wanted to be intimate online, but for years I thought she was my friend and something more. I think she just wanted me to entertain her, and for a while I was fine with it. But after my failed relationship, she started going hard on me, pretending we're friends and tell each other the hard truths. I honestly cannot take criticism from someone who spends all her days waiting for others to do things for her and does nothing herself. I just stopped talking to her, and I guess she understood because she never tried to contact me again. She messaged me after that last voice call but never reached out afterward. I don't have her blocked. I don't do that. She always watches the few things I post on the only social media app one barely uses. At one point, I tried to talk to her about her not having a job or doing anything else, and that didn't go well, so I never brought it up again. Then, after years, she told me I should get my life together. Like her, I suppose. Thank you to whoever made it this far. Story 65. He said some things while intoxicated that made me genuinely afraid to face him in person ever again. Mainly the rant about how men nowadays cannot get anywhere with women, but women are so surprised when men take things by force. Story 66. I helped her get a really good job, but she got us both fired. Then she wanted to get hired at my new job, so I blocked her. About a week later, I got a knock on my door. It was the police. She had filed a missing persons report for me. They were just doing a welfare check. I unblocked her and sent a text asking her to leave me alone. She replied, "What?" And I blocked her again. I haven't heard anything since. Story 67. More than once. In one case, she invited a friend on our date without asking me ahead of time. It was clear she just wanted a free dinner with her friend and actively ignored me while I was talking to her. I excused myself to the restroom but ended up leaving and blocking her number. The second case was a girl with whom I had a good first date, but the next morning I received 4 emails from her. 2 were e-cards thanking me for the date, though one was a bit much. The third was a poem she wrote called, "Will You Be My Other Wing?" confessing her love for me and imagining us getting married and having children. The 4th email said, "I hope all this wasn't too much. I just really feel like you are the one." After one date, these were definite red flags, so I ghosted her. Story 68. The first date was amazing. The second date was unremarkable. I couldn't figure out why the second date was not as great as the first, so I never called her back. Story 69. She contacted me after 10 years to meet for lunch. I was excited to catch up until I realized she was trying to get me to join her multi-level marketing. Story 70. After I quit one of my jobs, I deleted my social media connections with all my coworkers. I liked them all but did not like myself and needed a change. I hope to run into some of them one day as the new and improved me. Story 71. A friend of mine contracted human immunodeficiency virus from a man he met on a dating application. After being intimate, the man stopped responding, blocked him, and cut off all contact. Story 72. Never did it to me because I know too much about him. They always felt the need to tell people how successful they were, how much they spent on things, and how good of a person they were. It turns out he physically abused his child's mother, was in crippling debt, and only makes around $10 to $11 per hour. Story 73. I grew up with some good friends. Over the years, I fell out of the friend group mostly because my former best friend made sure I was being left out. The other guys knew about it too. They just let it happen. Fast forward about 20 years, I am still in scattered contact with these guys. The guy I talk to the most contacts the group and says, "Let's go on a trip together." I am hesitant but eventually agree. During the planning process, it becomes clear that my ex-best friend and his new best friend are planning a longer trip with the group, and I am only invited to part of the trip. One of them also accidentally responded to our group text with a message obviously meant for a separate group text that I was not part of. It was not disparaging, but they were clearly talking about this odd situation without me. I am middle-aged. I do not have time for mean girl behavior. I told them that I was canceling my trip. I did not respond to their follow-ups and deleted all of their contact information a couple of days later. It was disappointing because part of my mind assumed we would always be friends, but part of me finally realized that these guys stopped being my friends many years ago and trying to reconnect was a waste of time. Story 74. I usually do it after a really bad first date where you think the other person will freak out on you if you do not ghost them. The one time I went against my gut feeling of just ghosting, the woman freaked out on me. So now if I get that feeling, I ghost. Story 75. A now former friend. Every time I stood up for myself because he was insulting me and disguising it as jokes, or blowing up at me because I wasn't conforming to his expectations of how I should be. He expected me to be an exact clone of him, or yelling at me because he felt I wasn't spending enough money on lunch. He would turn the situation around on me and force me to apologize even when he was clearly in the wrong. Trying to tell him that I was done being his friend would have only ended with me apologizing again, everything remaining the same, walking on eggshells around him, and being generally miserable that he was part of my life. Ghosting him was the only way I could be free of him, and even then, he spent the next 3 years attempting to find a way to weasel back into my life. Story 76. I was chatting with a married woman for a while, and then happened to be in her city where I spent the night in a hotel. She came over in the morning around 10 a.m., and we slept together. After she left and I checked out of the hotel, I deleted her as a contact and never spoke with her again. The reason was that she told me stories about her husband being a dangerous and unstable man. Story 77. Initially, it was because a mutual friend confided in me that this man had assaulted him. I didn't talk to the man for months. Eventually, I started talking to him again, and almost immediately, he began telling me that one of our coworkers had tried to murder his wife. He went into extreme detail about what it must have felt like for her to be strangled by this big man. None of it was true. It was a relatively minor domestic dispute, and both had minor injuries. It wasn't even clear who the aggressor was. That was too strange for me. I haven't spoken more than 10 words to him in years. He is my coworker. In fact, I expect to hear his voice when he comes to work in about 5 minutes. I have enough stress in my life without worrying about unstable people like him. Story 78. It was middle school and I was not a good person. I do not even remember why, but I just stopped talking to him one day. I think I just thought he was annoying. Story 79. They were being very clingy and trying to play a strange, unwarranted guilt trip to make me invest more in them. Yuck. Story 80. A technical issue with the service provider forced me to get a new phone number. I unintentionally stopped responding to everyone. Many people found me, but the experience was actually quite cathartic and cleansing overall. Story 81. A man I knew for 25 years became a devoted Catholic and supporter of Donald Trump. His idea of a conversation was overwhelming me with talking points. He turned into a toxic, dull individual. Story 82. Met a girl through a friend. I was interested in something more, but she friend-zoned me. Figured why not? It wasn't like I had anything better lined up, and maybe over time things would change. Several months later, I met a girl who was interested in a relationship. She was very warm and loving but more traditional and didn't believe in friendship between men and women. I had to choose between a girl who was genuinely interested in me and treated me well, and one who put me in the friend zone and occasionally asked me for favors. It wasn't a difficult choice. That girl is now my wife and she is amazing. I definitely made the right choice. Story 83. Depression. I went through several years-long periods where I just would not talk to people. No texting, no meeting up, no social media. I try to warn people when I think it is likely to happen again now. Story 84. With rare exception, it is childish behavior. In physical danger or serious mental jeopardy, such as the commenter whose date used a racial slur, it is understandable. Simply being tired, bored, or angry does not justify ghosting. Ghosting is just the silent treatment in an emotional form. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.